Welcome back everyone, I hope that you guys are having a nice weekend, and for today's video I've got something that's a bit of a meme, I guess, but also pretty serious. It's an 8-link Terminus Est Cyclone Berserker. And I know, so let's get the cat out of the bag already, because I can predict the comment before you even type it. Cyclone build, everyone quick laugh at his tiny peepee. Okay, so to those who didn't get it, Cyclone is generally considered to be the easiest melee skill in the game. Not only due to its mobility, but also due to its ease of use, because it tends to scale pretty nicely as you build your character. However, in this specific scenario, it makes sense to use Cyclone in the build, especially when you take into consideration that the skill is linked to 7 support gems. And don't get me wrong, if melee skills were cheaper to use, then by all means this build would have been something else, but alas, that ain't the case. Now, I must be honest, because some of the clips have me using a 7-link Cyclone setup, because that was going to be the original plan for the build. However, I saw that there was a Terminus with 2 support corrupted implicits, and I don't know guys, I had to pull the trigger, the potential for greatness was there, and in the end, this ramped the character to 1000%. But before we continue with the video, hey, if you guys enjoy the content, be sure to subscribe to the channel and rate the video. I'm on the road to 500 subs, and with your help, random viewer, this can be achieved. If you noticed, there is a lot of chatter to go through with this one, so it's probably gonna be a bit of a long video. It's a good character though, so it kinda makes sense to make a video this long. Anyways, let's come back to the character himself. And there's yet another cat in the bag, which is how accessible or realistic is it gonna be for any of you to put this character together. And as the title, the thumbnail and the words I spoke earlier stated, it's an 8-link setup. This means that I'm using a fully 6-linked Terminus Est with a double corrupted implicit for support gems, in this case Onslaught and Fortify. Can this be achieved by everyone, or anyone rather? You see, the short answer is sort of, but the long answer is yes, as long as you have the patience and the currency to pull it off. But what do I mean by this? Well, there's technically 3 ways to get a similar sword. The first route is to corrupt a 6-link Terminus with a locus of corruption in the Temple of Azthoatl. If RNG is on your side, this is going to be the cheapest route to acquire the weapon setup, but also the most aggravating if you have bad luck. The second route is to acquire an 8-link Terminus through trade. This is the route I took, and it cost me 15 exiles for the sword alone. Did I overpay? Probably. The thing is, this is the guaranteed route, aka someone else had it and you joined it from their hands. And finally, the third route is to craft it yourself. And I know, Andrew, you dummy, you can't craft unique weapons, but hear me out. You still need to use trade, however the idea is trading for an unlinked Terminus with the double corrupted implicits. That's going to be the cheap part. The next part is acquiring the 6-link recipe from Delph, and finally 6-linking it on the crafting bench. This method is going to require 300 jewel orbs, 1500 fuses and 1800 val orbs, because you're going to be modifying the sockets on a corrupted item. Now the funny part about the third method is that it can be cheaper than the second route, if fuses and val orbs are cheap. Recently, val orbs and fuses have been rather cheap, and going with the third route would have been the smarter option, but I was lazy and I opted to get the 6-linked one outright. However, as I record this video, their prices seem to be rising back up, which may prove to be a problem if you wish to do something similar. Having said all of that, what else is there to say about the character before we dig into the regular build guide shenanigans? So, the character is a Berserker, which means we spec'd for the thick DPS, but that also made the character paper mache, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Besides that, I went fizz only for that sweet impale action. At the same time, I reused the explodey chest from the last couple of builds, and really, if I must say, investing into explodey chest early on in the league is probably one of the smartest things you'll ever do, considering how much use you're gonna get out of it. Alongside all of that, we're also making use of Warcry cluster jewels for the free rage on Warcry, crit chance and intimidation, which are too good to pass up. However, I'm pretty sure that you can push for even thicker DPS, but after investing a good portion of the hard-earned currency from the last video, I decided to limit myself instead of emptying my stash tabs. So yeah, this build is definitely not budget friendly, but hey, you never know, maybe in the future it becomes cheap as hell. Path of Exile economy, am I right? Anyways, with all of that said, it's time to dig into the character, so let us look into the skill tree, which looks like this. Alright, so it's time to talk about the gear, and the first thing is the weapon. A Terminus Est, 6 linked and corrupted with Fortify and Onslaught gem implicits. However, you could accommodate any other unique sword, axe, staff or mace. Granted, it has to be one that has some modicum of endgame capabilities and not some leveling unique that barely deals any damage. So, searching for an alternative may make this slot cheaper, but that's gonna be up to you to find out. The next piece of equipment is the chest, and it's Exploded chest with life and resists. As I said earlier, getting one of these with decent rolls is probably one of the best things you can acquire for the duration of an entire league due to their usefulness in dealing with pesky undead effects. Plus, it gives the build that bit of extra clear which feels pretty nice. Moving on to the head bucket, we want an Elder influenced helmet with life, a resist or 2, and nearby enemies take increased physical damage. Optimally though, we also want Conk effect for the area damage. Mine isn't enchanted because screw farming for enchantments, especially paying for one that's already enchanted. But optimally, it would have had Cyclone attack speed or attack speed with an Ancestral Protector, or hell, even Cyclone damage is pretty good. The hands are up and they are Tomb Fists, specifically corrupted with a maximum frenzy charge implicit. Try to get a pair with a max increased maximum life roll, and we only need one jewel socket. That socket houses a Searching Eye jewel for maiming enemies on hit. That very jewel has life, global crit multi and intelligence. Next are the boots, and they are Bubonic Trails with 2 abyssal sockets. I recommend getting a pair with the highest life roll but also an increased maximum life implicit. The jewels I have on my boots are a Murderous and a Hypnotic Eye jewel with resists, life, and enemies have negative total physical damage reduction as a corrupted implicit. Yes, both of them are similar. Optimally though, crit chance or crit multi would have been a great thing to have on this as well. Moving on to the belt, it's a Stygian Vines because it houses the last Abyss jewel. This belt needs life, resists, and you can craft increased damage. If you can get strength as well, that'd be dope. The last Abyss jewel is a Ghastly Eye jewel and it needs life, intelligence and a resist or 2. Optimally, try to find one with the fist damage reduction corrupted implicit. Next is the amulet, and mine has one of the most obscure things I've ever seen in this game. Damage with hits and ailments per curse on enemies. Though for your case I recommend getting fist damage to attacks instead of this obscure mod. Alongside life, resists and crit multi. We're gonna allocate Fatal Blade on this one for even more DPS. One of the rings has Assassin's Mark on hit, life and resists if possible. I recommend getting a ring with an open prefix so that you can craft reduced mana cost of channeling skills, because goodness gracious, we are gonna need that. The other ring needs life, accuracy, resists and damage mods such as crit chance, melee damage, fist damage attacks, etc. It also needs an open prefix for even more reduced mana cost of channeling skills. As for the Gatorade on your belt, it's a diamond, a sulfur and a lion's roar. Moving on to the jewels on the tree, the first one is a large cluster jewel with 8 passives at most, 2 jewel sockets and the notables Deep Cuts and Drive the Destruction. I chose Drive the Destruction to have a little bit more life leech, but ultimately it can be replaced with something else. Deep Cuts gives us an extra impale which is too good to pass up. Next are the other 2 medium cluster jewels. Both have 5 passives at most and a jewel socket. The first one has Haunting Shout and Moth Mentality. Haunting Shout intimidates nearby enemies when we Warcry, and Moth Mentality gives us 5 rage when we Warcry. The other jewel has Warning Call and Provocateur. Warning Call gives us melee crit chance and melee crit multi if we Warcried recently, and Provocateur gives us crit chance and crit multi against enemies taunted by the Warcry. As for the other jewels, we are using a Watcher's Eye with chance to deal double damage while using Pride. You could also go with crit multi with precision, extra impales with Pride, attack damage with precision or Pride, or attack speed with precision, or ultimately one that uses 2 different mods for that massive DPS gain. But those are expensive as heck, so it's up to you. The rest of the jewels are different enough that I won't go through each and every single one of them, which is why I am putting them on the screen right now. Generally speaking though, they have life, 1 or 2 damage mods and either resists or intelligence that I was lacking. And that's it for the gear, which means it's time to discuss gem links. On the sword, the gem setup is Cyclone, Link to Impale, Infused Channeling, Melee Fist, Brutality and Close Combat. Remember that Fortify and Onslaught are here intrinsically. If you can, use Awakened gems, otherwise the 2120 versions are enough. On the body armor, we are gonna have Pride, Precision, Dread Banner and Flesh and Stone, all of them linked to Enlighten level 3. In a best case scenario, a level 4 Enlighten will help the mana reserves. Also, with the exception of Precision, the other auras are corrupted for an extra level. Next are the totems, which are gonna go in the helmet. Ancestral Protector and Vaal Ancestral Warchief. Both of them are linked to main and empower. And a reminder that Vaal normal Ancestral War Chief can be used alongside the Protector. The rest of the gems are Flame Dash, Link to an Inspiration, and Second Wind, Enduring Cry, Blood Rage, and Berserk. Though Blood Rage is barely seeing any usage, so it can be avoided if you want. And that covers the ins and outs of the character, which means it's ramble time, so let's get rambling. And to be honest, it's weird. It's strong as hell, as most crap is getting one-tapped, the clear is hella crispy, and the boss fights are a joke. However, there is a downside, and that downside is the Ascendancy node aspect of Carnage. Getting hit is more often than not a death sentence. You don't want to get hit without channeling Cyclone, or else it's a stun city, and that means that the Coffin Dancers are gonna bust through your door. Granted, you know what you're getting into if you take aspect of Carnage, so in the end, dying out of nowhere is kinda justified. Otherwise, I think the character is more than good. The damage is hilarious really, and I'm pretty sure that he can go even higher with optimal mod rolls on the gear, or if we are talking crazy here, a better roll on the Terminus. Granted, for what it is and what it delivers, there is no need to ask for more, at least in my opinion. Having said that, I don't know if this build passes as a meme build, considering that it's an 8 link, and let's be frank, how often do you come across such a thing? Still, in the end, I decided to take it a bit seriously and make the character powerful. However, there is one last cat in this bag, and that is, was this worth it? Because the sword alone was 15 exiles, and the rest of the gear was another hefty chunk of currency. So to answer that question, it treads a fine line between hell yes and no. So let me explain. You're going out of your way to acquire a niche item to build around with. Why is this a niche item? Because there is simply no way in hell that an 8 linked unique item is the meta, aka sought after, best in slot, unbeatable, whatever. Since the supply of these weapons is so low, the chances of finding one for cheap are kinda non-existent, unless the person who trades for it is clueless enough that you can join it for close to nothing. The problem with this build stems from that very fact that the availability of a similar weapon or corrupting it or quote-unquote crafting it yourself is possible. Granted, with the weird-ass economy that Delirium has going on, you could probably acquire something similar for rather cheap, though cheap in this context is roughly a couple dozen exiles. Which is why this build is a bit of a meme. You're using something obscure and choosing to be very efficient with it. Now, did I have fun with it? Yes, it was hilarious and one of the highlights of the league for me. I never would have imagined such a thing to be possible. Was it worth it to me? Yes. Not only for the content it gave me, but also because it was an experience that is hard to replicate, and that elevates the fun factor it delivers. So in the end, justifying a build like this is gonna fall upon you, gamer. Anyways, that's it for this character. I've been building a Marauder character every other video, so it's time to take a break from that class for a while. So for the next character, I'm gonna be pushing for a Wanding Raider, or Raiding Wander, something like that. I don't know how good or bad that may end up being, seeing as we've never done a Wanding build in the channel, so that's gonna be interesting. Having said all of that, I am out. My voice is probably breaking down at this point, so quick reminder that if you aren't subscribed and you got to this point, be sure to do that on the way out. Otherwise, a rating and a comment also help out immensely. I wanna thank you for watching the video, and I'll catch you again soon. Peace out.